Welcome back. You must be asking, what exactly are we going to be doing in this lesson? So let's get the niceties out of the way. What we're going to be doing, I can share with you, is what you see on the screen in front of you now. First step, I think let's briefly recap what that decision-making process is. I know you might just have watched the last lesson. I think it's probably worth our while just to revise it anyway, and I'll introduce a little bit of new information. So we're going to be doing three things. I'll revise that process with you. Then I'm going to talk to you about how we can relate decision-making to planning. And then I'm going to introduce the 4 types of plan we find in a business. Nice bite-sized chunk. Okay. All right. The recap I introduce is this. Decision-making is about making choices between alternatives, right? And one of the choices we can make when faced with alternatives is just to do nothing. It's not necessarily an effective choice, but it is a choice. Here's the thing. I'll let you in on a secret. Half of the decisions made by managers are not good. And it's regarded that 5 out of 10 decisions might in fact be flawed in some other way. So there's an objective that every manager has to contemplate, and that objective is trying to increase the effectiveness of their decision making. Okay. Now, if decision making is then a process, because we've agreed it's a process, we see that there are 6 steps. And the steps are to recognize the need for a decision and the need to actually make the decision and not simply sweep it under the carpet as something you can come back to later. It is to, in step 2, to generate alternatives and then to evaluate those alternatives and choose the best one and then make it happen. And then finally here in step 6, to learn from the feedback of what we discover having implemented the decision. So we learned also that decision making can be routine or non-routine. And we know that routine decisions are programmed and non-routine decisions are the ones we just don't know. Okay. And what materializes is that we can see a blend of alternatives arising. So an example is to have a complex and non-routine thing arise. Sometimes business consultants and business people will refer to this as black swan events, like the pandemic back in 2020, which brought the entire planet to its knees as we had to stay home in order for us all not to get sick. So how best do you handle something which is unforeseen and something which is absolutely catastrophic? Something can be non-routine, like the COVID thing, but it can be simple. So you don't expect that your phone will stop working if it freezes, but it's a simple fix. You reboot the thing, okay? And and routine decisions which are complex arise like this. Someone hurts themselves, there's a procedure to follow. Whenever something can be undertaken as a process, then it tends to be routine. But those processes don't have to be about simple things. If someone gets hurt at work and you have to lodge a record of that event and a claim, then that is a complex exercise, even though it might be routine. So what falls into the category, you must then ask, what falls into the category of simple decisions which are routine? And here's a simple one. Plasters, Panado, aspirin, grandpa into the first aid box in a business. Who makes that decision? So the very straightforward, and you'd probably as a manager delegate that decision to an assistant to undertake for you. But I would take great note of these particular issues over here on this slide, all right? And that means that what we want is for every manager in an organization to make a lot of decisions, to make them quickly, and to make them well. Good decisions made with good information collected in a timeliest fashion, which are actually effective because they achieve the necessary outcome and they can be implemented. That's the goal. And that means we work according to routines, standards. And the International Standards Organization, because you've heard of ISO, So when we talk about ISO standards and ISO 9000, for example, or 9001 or 9002, we're simply saying there's a way of doing things which can be made precise and accurate. And that is our goal. But that's enough of a recap. The issue now is to say, how is decision making related to planning? And I'm going to say that a plan is what you intend doing in order to achieve something. So you need a goal there, all right? And we know that business is full of goals, like making a profit and paying your suppliers and keeping your customers coming back to you and vanquishing your competition. The goal of achieving those, the manner in which you achieve those objectives would include working with as little waste as possible. So that's what you see as efficiency there. Working with as little necessity to come back and do things again as possible, and that would be effectiveness. And then working with as much output as possible. And those are three fundamental things. They're my mantra. You'll hear me say them again and again and again. Productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness is what is required in order to make a business work. So if those things are fundamental to the business and its success, then the goal surely must be to create plans that work. And some people even say that if you improve your planning, then the whole business improves. I'm not so sure about that, but you'll find that Stoner, for example, says it this way: planning involves the most significant and far-reaching decisions a manager can make. When managers plan, they decide such matters as what goals and opportunities their organization will pursue, what resources they'll use, and who'll do the tasks. When plans go wrong or they go out of kilter, out of track, managers have to decide what to do to correct that deviation, that difference. In fact, the whole planning process involves managers constantly in a series of decision-making situations. How good their decisions are will largely determine how effective their plan will be. Okay? That means we must distinguish different types of plan. And I'm going to say there are 4 types. And those types of plans can be found in the marketing function of the business, and the operations function, and the people function, and the money function. It involves different people. It involves people at different levels, and they have to commit resources within each of those functions of the business to achieving the goal. So the 4 plans, and we will go through each of these, is a strategic plan, tactical plans, operational plans, and contingency plans. If we look at operational plans, because I'll start there, if we look at operational plans, then I'm going to point out to you that we talk about the plans that happen inside the factory, let's say, or happen on the shop floor in Checkers or Pick n Pay. Those plans can be ongoing or they can be single use. An ongoing plan is the stuff that you do in as routine a way as possible, even if it is complex. Now, do you see why we did that recap? Even if it is complex, but it's a routine. So can you pursue the routine? Whereas a single-use plan is something that you do in order to achieve a particular thing, like doing a stock take in the business. Now, if there were operational plans and strategic and contingency and tactical plans, can I recommend we look at contingency plans? Because a contingency plan is, I think, the plan for just in case. I can't think of a better way to describe it. Contingency plan says, if it happens, then you can fall back on the plan. A plan for just in case. For when things are possible, but you can't predict with certainty whether they're going to happen or not. So a contingency plan is like a provision for something happening. Okay, we're racing through these. It means that maybe we should look at a strategic plan. Let's do that. it's like, I call it the master plan. A strategic plan is the master plan. And it involves, and we'll talk about this in the next lesson, it is the blueprint, the plan of action for the entire business and all of the people and all of the money and all of the other resources as well. And it's typically something which you put in place, intending that you achieve its goals, you accomplish the targets you set for yourself or set for the business in 5 years and longer. So very long time frame. The university, as an example, works within a 10-year planning time frame for its strategic planning. What we find in there, and we've learned about these words, is the mission of the firm and the vision of the firm. And now we're introducing this notion of values, and you understand what values are because we did that way back in the first theme, remember? So a strategic plan is going to consider things in the long term, and it looks at the big picture. It says what's going to happen over here. We can contrast that with important plans, a little bit like a master plan, but with a shorter time frame. And we call those tactical plans. They are the plans that engage the tactics that you will use to execute on your master plan. So there's a focus, and the focus is on what does it take to accomplish the goal? Is it about the people? Is it about the materials, the methods? Does it revolve around the introduction of a new product, for example? And is the design complete, and is it practicable to introduce the product at this point in time? So very focused and short term. And by short term, I'm saying probably around the region of 3 months to a year, perhaps a little bit longer. Let's call them the 1-year plans. So an operating plan is what you do on a day-to-day basis, just like the university. It sets a timetable, it sets a sessional calendar. We know when the exams are coming up. All of that is clear for us well in advance. We then have a tactical plan, which says that we will start urging you to think about the examinations during the month of October in particular, because November is the month in which you write. So a strategic plan to make you into a graduate one day. Tactical plan to make sure that you write the exams. An operating plan is the fact that we are able to send you off to an examination hall in the 2 exam diets in June and November of each year. We're able to send you off to an examination hall, put invigilators into the room and exam papers, and 3 hours later have you walk out having accomplished what is necessary to demonstrate the extent of your learning. And that is an operating plan. So those 4 plans I've sketched for you here from the McGraw-Hill text. Strategic planning is undertaken as a conceptual exercise. Tactical planning is something that middle managers do, and operational planning is something that the shop floor managers do. Contingency planning is something that you do in the anticipation that there could be a problem and that you might have to deal with it. So if we are to reflect on that, because I think that's enough, what we've done is this. We understand decisions to be a process. We understand that if you do that process well, then you're probably going to generate better decisions. And in addition to that, you make the decision in a timely way, because waiting for perfect information is going to give rise to impossible outcomes. So what we want is to achieve satisfactory outcomes. We satisfice. And decisions made in groups, we understand, could make the decision better, but it's also fraught with difficulty. So there's the risk of groupthink we have to contemplate. Now, we have reached a key point over here, and you see me on this particular slide saying, okay, I'm probably going to conclude soon. And that certainly is the case, because what you've learned is that decision-making is fundamental to planning. You've learned that plans are proposals for achieving something, and you make them in anticipation and in advance of actually doing something. if you make your decision making in advance, we recognize the objective we're trying to achieve is that you're reducing the level of risk involved in doing business. In other words, you're unlikely to be taken by surprise. And finally, there are 4 types of plan: strategic, tactical, operational, and contingency plan. So we can draw a conclusion over here. And the conclusion is simply that it isn't enough to know that there's a process, but you also have to know that there's types of plan. The fundamental thing is we must now look at what that master plan is, and that becomes the objective of the next video lesson. I'll see you in that one.